Do you know, catastrophizing could actually kill you. So we need to find ways to help you stop it. Hi, my name's Christine L. Conroy. Welcome to Happy Stuff and Fluff, a channel for women who are getting happy, living longer and growing younger. So this week, my boss asked me to give a presentation to some potential investors, but I can't do it because I just know I will die alone. Didn't make sense, that did it? My boss asked me to give a presentation to some potential investors and I can't do it because I just know I will die alone. I'll come back and explain that statement in a few minutes. So today we're talking about catastrophizing. What is it then? Well, it's a cognitive distortion. It's a mind trap, and it's something that we all do every now and then. But if it's becoming a habit, you really do need to stop it. So catastrophizing then is worst case scenario thinking. It's always expecting the worst. It's blowing everything hugely out of proportion. It's making mountains out of molehills. It's exaggerating the consequences of any particular event. Now, you can catastrophize in two ways. You can catastrophize about a current event. So let's say, for example, I go from my kitchen to the sitting room in my home to get something. And when I get to the sitting room, I've forgotten what I've gone in there for. Has anybody else done that? Raise your hand if you did. I bet you have done that. That's okay. We all do that too. Where it becomes a problem is if I then spend the rest of the day obsessing about the fact that I have early onset Alzheimer's. Yeah? And catastrophizing about a future event, you can do that too. Let's say you're going on a date, the first you've been on for the longest time. In the days leading up to that date, you have thoughts like this. This date is going to go badly wrong. I just know it is. I don't have anything to say. He or she is going to think I'm such a boring person, and then he's going to end the date early. He'll probably be on Facebook. And if he puts it on Facebook, somebody I know might see it, and then I'll be totally humiliated and never get another date ever again. Gosh. Yes, you see, well, whether you catastrophize about a current event or a future event, you need to stop it. Habitual catastrophizing affects your entire outlook on life. It limits your possibilities. It limits your career. It certainly can damage your relationships. It often creates a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure and disappointment. It can lead to frustration, definitely unnecessary distress. It can lead to panic attacks, anxiety, depression, and yes, heart disease. Wow. Unnecessary distress, panic attacks, anxiety, and depression. And of course, my aim in these videos is to prevent you from getting sucked into that downward spiral. Now, catastrophizing involves you ruminating about horrible things that have such a low probability of happening that it's wasted time. It's negative energy, wasting your time on negative energy. And it actually stops you from focusing on the actual situation itself and being able to respond to that effectively. And of course, my main concern is that it prevents your happiness and certainly stops you from living your best life. So why do we do it? Well, assuming that you don't have a clinical disorder of which catastrophizing is a part, it could be learned behaviour from a parent. You know, you may have had a mum or dad who always expected the worst or saw the worst, if you like. You may think that thinking the worst prepares you so that if the worst does indeed happen, then it won't be a shock or a disappointment to you. Sometimes if you predict that something's going to go wrong and it does go wrong, then you can say you were right. an example of that, let's say you're taking a driving test or some kind of test, and you predict that, oh, there's no way I'm not going to pass this test. And then you don't pass the test. You were right all along. So it doesn't become about you failing your test. It becomes about you being right, predicting that you were going to fail the test. So it prevents you from feeling disappointment, I suppose, in that sense. It justifies your reasons for not doing something. So let's say you feel that you're a shy person and you're invited to a party that you really would like to go to, but you have thoughts such as, oh, I'm going to go and I won't know anyone and nobody's going to talk to me, and I'll be standing against the wall on my own and feeling foolish, and people are going to laugh at me, and then I'll end up coming home early and feeling horrible. And so you think, no, it's not worth the risk. I won't go. Okay. It could just be a habit you don't know how to break. The thing is, it doesn't matter why you're doing it. When you are doing it, it feels real. Your catastrophizing feels very real. Let me explain why it feels so real. When you're catastrophizing, you slip into what we call snowball thinking. So this is where one thought builds on the previous thought, like a snowball going downhill, making each thought stronger than the thought before. Hence snowball thinking. So let's go back to my original statement, the one where I said that my boss asked me to give a presentation to possible investors, and I can't do it because I'll die alone. Okay, now if we look at the snowball thinking involved in getting us from my boss asked me to do a presentation to I will die alone, let's have a look at what happens. So the first thought, which is quite a reasonable thought to have, you're asked to do a presentation and you think, I don't really know enough. This is not my area of expertise. Okay, that's perfectly rational thing to think. But then the thought that comes very quickly after that one is, I'm going to ruin everything. I'm going to make a mess of it. And if I do that, these people are not going to invest and my boss is going to be very angry with me. He might even give me the sack. Now, there's a possible nugget of something in that. But then the thought after that goes, if I lose my job, we won't be able to pay the mortgage. We could lose the house. We'll be homeless. We'll be homeless, and what's going to happen if you're homeless because of something that you did? My partner will leave me. He's going to leave me. We'll end up getting divorced, and if I get divorced at my age, I'm never going to meet anyone again, and I'm going to die alone. Okay, now that's how you get to I will die alone. And as you're having these snowball thoughts, your anxiety, as you can see here, is building and building, and you are now in a highly emotional state. But if you look at these steps, or these snowball steps, then you're not going from I don't know enough, it's not my area of expertise, to I will die alone. I will die alone results from your partner leaving you. Now, that could well happen. If your partner left alone and you're a woman of a certain age or a person of a certain age, then you may not find another partner. That's a perfectly rational thing to say. And my partner leaving me comes from the thought before. We're not going to be able to pay the mortgage. We'll be homeless. We could be fighting all the time. We could end up getting divorced. That also is quite a rational thing. And that thought came from, I'm going to ruin this presentation. My boss will not get investors. He's going to be so angry that I'm going to lose my job. So you see how that builds, and that's why your thoughts, your ruminating thoughts, feel so real. But now as you've got to I will die alone, that's the thought you're focusing on. Your anxiety is high. You are now in a highly emotional state. Your body has gone into fight or flight mode at this perceived threat of dying alone. And when your body does that, it's on high alert. You know, your heart is racing, your muscles are clenched, your tummy's tight, your chest is beating like this, your focus is narrow, and you are operating from fear, from the emotion of fear. Now, if somebody tries to rationalise with you at this point and says to you, oh, don't be silly, you're not going to die alone, calm down. You are not going to calm down. You're going to be, don't tell me to calm down. Yes? Perhaps not quite that bad, but you might get there. Don't tell me to calm down, because you are thinking with your emotional brain and not your rational brain. So, we have to stop it here. How do we stop it? Well, first of all, we have to get you out of that fight or flight mode. We have to get your body out of that into a more relaxed state. We need to get your body back to balance. Now, for me, the quickest way to do that is to come back to your breath. It's to come to your breathing. And you've to come to what I call the Conroy breath, or the belly breath, the 4-6 breath, which is breathing in for 4 and out for 6. And if you don't know, that's the belly breath. You breathe in. When you breathe in, your belly comes out. So you're breathing into your tummy for 4. And then out for 6. And when you breathe out for 6, consciously let your shoulders drop. And keep doing that until you are calm. And then we can move on to bringing you out of catastrophizing. So have a look at this. So what's next is you've come into the belly breath. Then you label. Once again, you label. So you say to yourself, like I would say, Christine, you were catastrophizing. Those thoughts were catastrophizing thoughts. Now, immediately you label it, you distance yourself from the thought. You distance yourself from the thought, and this is what you need to do. And now you can say, is there another way of looking at this? Or, even better still, what is another way of looking at this? And answer. Answer. Find another way of looking at it. Even if you don't believe that other way, take your focus off the negative and look at ask yourself, what's a different way of looking at it? And now you can start to question. So pick up your pen and your journal and go back to the catastrophizing thoughts that you were having. Back to those thoughts. So let's have a look at our thoughts then and see what we can do about questioning or challenging and disputing those thoughts. So the thought that I don't know enough, it's not my area of expertise, becomes, well, my boss trusts me. If he didn't think I could do it, he wouldn't have asked me, so he has faith in me, and I do have time to prepare. I will ruin everything and my boss will fire me becomes, I'm going to do my best. The chances of my boss firing me are very slim. He knows my value to the company. He knows I work hard. And we won't be able to pay the mortgage. We will be homeless. We'll become, even if I do lose my job, even if I were to lose my job, my partner could pay the mortgage for a few months until I get a new job. You see, you're not denying, you're not saying I will not be fired, but you're reducing the possibilities of it, but giving yourself an answer. Well, if that did happen, my partner would pay the mortgage for a few months until I get a new job. We're not going to lose the house. My partner will leave me then becomes, my partner loves me and will support me. And I will die alone becomes, the presentation will go well and my partner and I will go out to celebrate. Okay, now the key thing now is to take action. If there is an action to be taken, you must take it. Your brain needs closure, and so you need to take action. Now, in this particular case, your action would be to start preparing, to research and rehearse practice your presentation to be sure to give yourself the best chance of giving a good presentation. So that's going to be your action in this case. If there is no action, no immediate action you feel you could take, then just make a decision about a situation. Just make a decision to give your brain closure. Now, the other thing is, you might be thinking, well, this is okay if I have time to sit down with a journal and dispute the thoughts and so on. What happens if it's real time? So something you need to remember, it's a well-known fact that human beings overestimate future problems and underestimate their ability to cope with them. You need to remember this. So the first thing to do, even if it's in the moment, you need to come back to the breath. You need to use the breath to get you out of that fight or flight mode. So as soon as you know what's happening, that you need to calm down, take the breath. So you can do number 1. You can do number 2. I'm catastrophizing. That's a catastrophizing thought. You can do that. And then you can tell yourself this, that human beings are renowned for overestimating a problem and underestimating their ability to cope with it. So think of a time when you were catastrophizing about something. You know, things are never as bad as you think they're going to be. That's the point I'm making. And you will have experience of this, something you've been really concerned about. And in the end, it was not as bad as you thought it was going to be. And you managed to deal with it. We know this because if you're a woman over 40, if you're 50, 60, however old you are, you have come up against adversity and you have dealt with it. I can do this. I've coped before. I will cope again. Have faith in yourself. Okay, so that's the way to deal with that. Have faith in yourself. Now, if this video has helped you in any way, please will you give it a thumbs up? It really helps the channel. And also, will you share the video with someone who you think would benefit from its content? Because a lot of us are walking around doing this, catastrophizing, and it's eroding emotional well-being at best and making people ill at worst. So I would appreciate it, and I'm sure whoever you share it with would appreciate it too. Okay, as I say, I hope that's helped, and I'll see you next time. And until then, remember that we are getting happy and growing younger on Happy Stuff and Fluff. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.